And in three, two, one. Welcome to another episode of The Dense Thinkers. Today we're going off the boat a little bit. We're going to be talking a little bit about the donut and what kind of symbolism young Ben discovered while looking upon it. We're also going to be discussing some of the things that we are doing to improve both mind and body. Perhaps we'll discuss how the Greeks incorporated this into their daily life and why it is important to treat the body as you do the mind and vice versa. Ben, you want to give us a little introduction to the donut?
Sure, why not? Excuse the raspy voice, everybody. I had a very long weekend. So, the donut, what is it? It is an abomination to food worldwide. Fruits and vegetables look at the donut in disgust. This is the ugliest food, much like the ugliest man, which we will discuss in another podcast. So, the donut is food, and we consume food. Where does it go? To the stomach. What happens to certain foods in the stomach, like an apple versus a frosted donut? How does the body respond? Um, you can think of an initial response with a donut as good. Your body thinks that this is a sweet fruit that it's been programmed to look for and to eat. And so when it has those sugary sensations, those simple carbs, it thinks that, oh, yay, you found something really good. Keep on eating this. Only later, after digestion, does your body realize what it is. The processed, the disgusting, the useless calories, carbs, simple sugars that you just ingested. How does it make you feel? I know how it makes me feel. When I eat food like that, like the donut, like McDonald's, whatever, I am filled with, I would say, not regret, but filled with an understanding that this is not something that I should be doing or consuming, especially on a frequent basis. I think before I talk about the stomach and the brain's connection, it's important to promise. It's a quick one. So I think it's important to know and remember moral relativism. Um, okay. Moral relativism. For this is a very Nietzschean concept. After the pronunciation of the death of God and all that, he says you have to find your own set of moralities that fit your personality, your archetypes, your characteristics. But why does this matter when we're talking about donuts, the brain, and the stomach? Because if to you normal, which again is a subjective term, is eating chips, Mountain Dew, donuts, cookies, all of these foods on a regular basis, that is your normal, and therefore you won't actually know how bad you're treating your body until you go and switch over into eating fresh and non-processed fruits and vegetables. You know, like the ones you find at local farmers market or your friends or yourself may grow. That's when you realize when you make the switch what true normal is, because that's what we've always been eating, and that's what's always kept us in a um, good light in terms of our respect for our own body. So tying this into the brain is not that much different than the stomach. I'm sure you have possibly heard of this analogy before, but the stomach is the second brain. The stomach has vast communications with the brain, as you do need, from an evolutionary perspective, food to live or you die. So your brain and your stomach have to be in a lot of contact to make sure that you're in a good place so you're not malnourished, so you can perform optimally and you don't die. So, transitioning to the brain now, the phone. Why am I relating the phone to a donut? It's not just the phone, it's a lot of things. But the point is that the brain also ingests material. This isn't a new concept that I created. This is one I've heard repeated multiple times. But the brain ingests quote unquote food in the form of data. What kind of data are you consuming in your brain, and what is that data doing to your brain? let's say, for instance, we're all very familiar, or at least we should be very familiar, with the terrifying algorithm of Facebook. That also, by the way, if you didn't know, owns Instagram. So, excuse me, you might want to hop off that too. Think about the algorithm that's meant to, under a capitalist system, keep you engaged for as long as possible, because that generates revenue, generates money, so the beast can continue to survive. And there's no real morals other than that. So they don't care. The algorithm isn't designed to care about what is good for you and what is bad for you, just what is going to keep you engaged the longest. So it's no wonder you see so much controversial for everybody. It's not just controversial from one side or the other. This is information the algorithm puts forward to keep you engaged is very controversial, because that is what keeps you engaged. I'm pretty sure it's pretty clear. I like the movie Nightcrawler, and in the movie Nightcrawler, the the big news network that Jake Gyllenhaal works for, that he's trying to take over, that damn sociopath. The lady says this famous quote that's super, it's super realistic, which is, "If it bleeds, it leads." In other words, if you just show happy rainbows, sunshines, puppies, oh my God, the cure for cancer is out. Yay, let's celebrate all these happy, positive, actually useful for the progression of humanity. That kind of news, people are not going to watch, because guess what? The world is in a good place. So they're free. They don't have to tune in, because they know the world's in a good place. But in a malicious sense, the vice versa is devilishly true. If it's catastrophic, whether it's hurricane, natural disasters, plagues, viruses, emotionally, I don't want to say draining, but emotionally charged subjects, like children dying and shootings and this and that, that's what's going to keep people tuned in, and for good reason, because a lot of people have children and they don't want their children dying. That's traumatic. I know life is traumatic, but that's something, obviously, if you can avoid, you really should. That's really dumb. But back to the point, because I'm beginning to rant, I believe. The data you consume directly affects the brain. You can think of all of that negative information from Facebook as like heroin, for your body, and for your mind. It's heroin for your mind, because we all have a little monkey in our brain that loves dopamine, that loves to be engaged and to, spit out serotonin at the signs of like very engaging things. It doesn't necessarily have to be good. It can be engaging, and then that stuff will get stimulated. Or it triggers something primal in you, our instincts that have been fine-tuned to watch for predators, watch for natural disasters, watch for enemy tribes, whatever. That hasn't gone away, and capitalism has just found a way to distort that, to make you think, to like harp on those instincts, because they know that that's what's like artificially keeping you engaged. So it's all about engagement, people. So yeah, but you can think of the opposite is true as well. Just like we have fruits and vegetables for our stomach, natural, straight from the ground, composted properly, where you don't, there's no waste. It's really just like, again, it's like returning to monkey, but a little bit better. It's a return to the most natural and healthiest, you could say. I definitely say. I mean, I don't think it's a contended point that eating fruits and vegetables and meat and fish and what have you, that you yourself grow and you yourself are alone responsible for, is definitely going to be healthier than buying meat that's been packaged, processed, shipped from who knows where. I mean, how many people actually know where their food comes from? How many ships from overseas, from different countries? How much time is it sitting there, and what do they need to do to preserve it for that long before it gets to you and before you eat it? So these are all things to consider for the stomach and for your physical health, but also your mental health. It's a very good idea, I find, to treat the phone, treat whatever vice you have in terms of data that you're consuming for your brain, like junk food. Think about it. Think about, like, when you pick up your phone. Like, I'm very health conscious, and I started thinking about the phone as junk food. And I ask myself when I pick it up, do I really need this junk food? Like, what am I doing? And that's helped me put another barricade in the impulsive decision making of the monkey brain that just grabs the phone without you actually having any conscious thought. Because deep down, there's an unconscious within all of us that knows what it wants, and it wants immediate pleasure now. I know that's redundant, but it wants immediate pleasure and it wants it now. And if it can bypass your conscious thinking, which knows the best for you, almost like the angel on your shoulder, and that's the devil on your shoulder. And in a sense, I don't really like that example, but I'll run with it for now. Then it will take control, and it'll kind of spiral your life out of control. So that's something important to pay attention to, is like, just be more conscious, be more thoughtful of what you're doing. Because a lot of people I know, it happens to me even too. It's hard to keep on track of, but will just grab their phone because it's so easily accessible. It's right there. You can, like, within a few clicks that you don't even have to think about, you can be on Instagram, you can be on Snapchat, you can be on the internet, YouTube, whatever, and then satisfied. You know that there's stuff there that'll release dopamine in your brain, no matter how small. Just like the monkey that's been trained to pull the levers. There's been plenty of experiments, but pull the levers for cocaine over food, to the point where they're starving because, damn, that shit slaps. Ryan, if you want to provide a part, let me know. I do have one other thing, which I think was distraction, so I can just write it down and talk about it after. If you
I'll just kind of say what I want to say, and then we'll have a little discussion afterwards. So, we can talk about, like, the neurochemistry and biochemistry effects of certain, stimuli and chemicals have on the brain, and motivation to do things and eat things, and how our brain's chemistry is what's affecting our behaviors. And in a way, like, if you don't have control of yourself, then you have little control over your actions. So practicing discipline and understanding of, what you consume and how it affects you is only really gonna to better you. If you allow others to control what goes on within you, isn't that the ultimate form of slavery? Which is something I've really been trying to practice. Because, are you going to allow a app to take away time you could be bettering yourself or whatever, just because you want that dopamine release, instant availability of entertainment, rather than doing something productive yourself? Everything nowadays seems to have many positives and many negatives, and there's no real open discourse about where the line is. How much time on social media is enough, how electronics are affecting people's sleep, how the foods that people choose to consume are affecting their mind and body and health. To add on to a few of Ben's points there, I know you said that the stomach is the second brain. How I like to think of it is that the stomach is the garden of our body. It's filled with a whole microbiome of organisms and the gut flora, which inherently is most of your immune system. So when you're feeding your body these simple sugars and simple carbs, you can be fueling a poor gut flora, which is going to affect your overall health, which in turn affects your brain, how you're feeling, how much energy you have, your focus. I'd really like to have a look at a lot of studies of kids who have ADHD, and how cutting out junk food and sugars and simple carbs out of their diet, whether it would improve their focus or not.
Also the phone.
Yeah, sure. What you feed yourself influences the mind. So it's important to be wary of these things. I know there's a huge difference between, say, what a marathon runner would eat versus what someone who competes in a strength sport. Many of these endurance athletes eat a lot of simple carbs and sugars to give them quick bursts of energy. But but they have to continuously do so, as one who drinks alcohol would have to continuously drink to maintain their level of drunkenness uh, before your body is able to metabolize the alcohol and you start to feel the, I guess, the depressant effects of the alcohol.
The literal poison.
Yeah, so it's I think for me, I found that the best balance is to get sustained energy from eating nutrient dense foods. And it's also important, like Ben said, when we're getting our foods from all around the world, when we have ample growing space ourselves, you have to worry about the bioavailability of the nutrients in the food itself. Especially with animal products, once the animal is killed, the cells and the cells and everything else, they're slowly dying as well. So the longer you spend before you eat the meat without preparing it in a proper manner, the bioavailability of nutrients are not there. So the benefits that people can claim to have from certain products, you won't be able to get because it's not fresh. You may have 50, 60, 70% less of these really good nutrients that you're missing out, causing micro deficiencies of the nutrients in your body. I guess returning to that primal way of living where you look at what our ancestors ate and try and incorporate that into your daily life is definitely necessary. Yeah, it's also like really interesting about how our body is just filled with like parasites and all these like microorganisms, and we coexist with them. So everything in the body needs to be balanced. Like the Candida diet has been popularized because having an overgrowth of Candida in the body, which is a harmful bacteria, can have several health effects that will negatively impact your energy and focus. Finding that balance within yourself where you have sustained energy, not these ups and downs, feeding into, the having an unstable balance of, these bacteria in your body. I think that's also the same for the phones and everything else. When you're seeking and searching for dopamine, you have to keep leveling and leveling and leveling up the amount of time, the amount of pleasure you receive from something, and that's why balance is very important. It's like people who are drug addicts. To get the same high that their first high once was, they have to keep adding more and more and more, which inherently is poisoning your body, because while you are able to like handle that amount of whatever drug or sugar or whatever, the body's ability to metabolize is still the same. It's not improving, but you're continuously giving it more and more and more, like an overweight person who's able to drink like a liter to a liter of whiskey, while the 100-pound person would not be able to, but they probably have quite similar sized livers. So you're really just abusing yourself and your body. I guess that's all I really had to say about it. I say, why don't we discuss like some things that we've really found have been helping ourselves improve our mind and body. Kind of get back to that, that Greek philosophy where it's just as important how you grow the garden of your mind as it is the garden of your body.
Yeah. A few points related to, I only have 3 points related to your discussion there, which is one is minor, but it is in terms of like frozen meat and frozen food, especially vegetables, because they lose a lot of nutrients. Frozen does not stop time. Time has changed. Just because you freeze something and ship it overseas, and it's been a week, doesn't mean that it's not deteriorating. Doesn't mean that it's not losing nutrients. I think it's like something that you actually have to think about for a second to go, wait a minute. Yeah, that makes sense. Like Because if you could just freeze something and it stays in that state that it was frozen in, that would be the best life hack ever. That was a simple one. The other one was another age-old adage that's been passed around probably since the Greeks and before, probably ancient Egypt. What you put in is what you get out. It's a pretty simple equation. It is timeless. Whatever you put in, no matter what it is, whether it's activities you do for physical exercise, eating for your body, reading for your mind, internet for your mind, whatever, spirituality, you're going to get the same thing out. It's the Eastern boys were onto something with their karmic cycles. And then the last thing that I had were, which is relevant to what you want to talk about now, is distractions. So I learned from a fellow podcaster who helped me out quite a bit, that it's a common misconception to think like you should have the junk food in your house, you should have the phone next to you, and actively be trying to combat the ideas of wanting to eat the junk food or use the phone. He told me that that's actually the worst thing you can do, because it's very mentally draining to have to think about constantly. Like you have, like I said, a little devil on your shoulder telling you, like, it knows that the simple pleasure is there, and it's going to keep on egging you on until eventually you're going to break. It's happened to me countless times with many things I've tried to improve on. So in other words, what he recommended is distractions, just leave them behind. If you have a problem with food, stop buying the food. The minute you remove it from your house and it's inaccessible to you, things get a lot easier to do. Like dieting gets a lot easier if you only have the food that you know you're supposed to be eating. Same thing with the phone. Like maybe if you really can't handle it, like myself, like I'm considering downgrading to just a flip phone, just for phone calls and text. Like I have a computer at home. Why do I need, besides like a camera, why do I really need a portable internet device with me? It doesn't really do anything. It does more harm than good. So those are my, and then the last thing about the distractions is an example, which I was just listening to a podcast about one of my favorite authors, or I should say, one of my up and coming favorite authors, Chuck. I forgot his last name. It's very hard to pronounce, or at least for me. But he's the author of Fight Club, and for him, he's very familiar with this, and he struggles with this. And for some of his best writing has come from when he's on a plane and he has nothing else to do besides write for 4 hours, and that's when he writes the best stuff. So that's what I'll end with.
Yeah, sure. And I personally, rather than eliminating it from my life entirely, I'd say that that's just giving you, unless you're actively willing to, not interact with others who also are doing the same thing, it's going to be very hard for you to take something out of your life if you go out with some friends and they're all eating desserts and everything like that. So it's like when I quit cigarettes, I kept I said this is my last cigarette, and I kept the cigarette in the box, and I looked at it every day, and I could have easily grabbed that last cigarette and smoked it, but I didn't. And I still have the cigarette to this day, and no matter when I was drunk, when people often like to smoke cigarettes or after sex or whatever, never did I once smoke a cigarette again since that day. And that kind of willpower is from looking at it every single day and not letting it enslave me. And I still have many things to work on and vices that I have, but I'd rather face them, like facing the dragon that says thou shalt, than to hide them away and act like they're not there and that I still don't crave them. I want to be fully committed in my body and my mind that is not something for me.
Okay, so we have a healthy disagreement of our approaches to life, which is nice.
For sure. Because it's like everyone's different, right? So it's like whatever helps. Like ice cream in the fridge or whatever someone craves. If you see that, it's much harder to have it in the house than it is at all. But it depends what stage you're in, right? It's like many things. If you continue to quit them, you learn from your mistakes, if you get back on the wagon or whatever. You know, it's not the end of the world if you say you're going to do something and you end up not having the willpower or the strength to do so. Because if you're able to go a certain amount of time without doing so, it's you've learned so much about yourself and who you are. And I guess I'll take this in the direction of no nut and how that's able to affect your willpower. You know, it's like, you know, we're not perfect beings just because we're in a society where we're so advanced technologically. We've got so many fascinating things that the animal kingdom does not, and we are the pinnacle of the food chain. But we are still so animalistic in nature. Reptilian brain, or as Ben would say, the monkey. It's a difficult battle to go against your primal urges and be someone who you believe you are. You know, it's like you can believe you're a great person, but sometimes your animalistic urges take over and you do something that may not be harmful to anyone else, but you regret yourself or something else. The No Nut November, you know, it's like, I think most men who struggle with any kind of or enjoy watching pornography, which I highly disgust. I'm highly disgusted at pornography, even though I have indulged in it myself. It's just, you know, how is that going to affect your interpersonal relations with women when you've been looking at, you've seen more naked women than anyone in time has ever seen ever, you know, previous to the age of the internet. You can see there's not even enough time if you started watching pornography today till the day you die. That's how many videos are available at your fingertips on your phone. And that's like the same thing with the food. If it's not in the house, how can you be tempted by it? I guess that's why, okay, sorry. That's why it's important to probably practice, you know, being abstaining without it and abstaining without it at all. You know, it's like, I personally would never want to see my daughter on a pornography for other men to pleasure themselves to. And how does that affect your brain? Looking for this dopamine rush, interacting with a digital woman, watching others have sex so that you may attain orgasm yourself. The whole thing is quite sickening if you look at it from an outside perspective. Although natural behavior, I guess, but the pornography inherently has so many negative effects. And things that often give you great pleasure are never without a, how would you call that, a punishment in return. You know, you don't really get away with things scot-free when, how it's going to affect your relationships in the future if you continue to do so. I think it's like 60% of men who watch pornography end up getting divorced. You know, it's hard to find someone sexually attractive if you're watching unattainable women and their naked selves on the internet, where you're having these sexual relationships with a virtual 10 out of 10 woman, not to use numbers, but it just can't be healthy for the mind.
And also, like, think where if you're not thinking about the future, then you're doomed to be a slave to it. Like, what we have now compared to what there was before, you know, there was just a magazine with a picture of a girl. And yeah, sure, there were always strip clubs, but that's a lot different than pornography. Pornography is like, it's much lower on the scale.
Sorry to interrupt, Ben, but also, like, sex and brothels and pornography were highly demonized in those times and were only seen by, like, depraved folk or folk who weren't upstanding citizens or citizens who were helping their country be a better place. Now it's just sort of been normalized.
Yeah, sexual liberation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry
have
for
sex with
interrupting.
however many people you want, no consequences, free love. It's like what happens to a bar of gold that everybody touches? It gets real. It loses its shine. It loses its value. It loses its the inherent. I mean, it doesn't lose its like qualities, but um, it definitely gets worse. But also, back to the future thing. I mean, like, bro, if you're if you are an understanding individual of where things are going, and you can act on this understanding, I'm gonna say it's gonna be very, very, very easy for those individuals to rise to the top. Um, what I mean by that is the future of this sexual pleasure. It's not just gonna end with it never stops. Nothing ever stops. Everything gets progresses. So right now it's porn on a computer. Um, there's flashlights. There's VR. Uh, there will eventually be robots. That's really not that hard to understand that that's coming. Literally, no pun intended. Um, there's going to be huge corporations because of capitalism that are going to capitalize on this demand that men will have because everyone on an animalistic level, on an instinctual level, on a I should say everybody and everything on a slave relation to their instincts is going to want the easiest thing with the least amount of effort. Um, like if you feed a lion, dead meat, like you just kill the animal for it and you just constantly feed it, it's going to eat it, but eventually it's going to get bored and it's going to kind of like revolt or just die of boredom, like killer whales do in their little tent. So what I'm saying is like these sex robots that Elon Musk is going to create little cat girls, and all the things they go ooh woo and fucking senpai, like that's going to be real, and you're going to be able to order one, and it'll never talk back to you. It'll clean your house. It'll have sex with you whenever you want. Um, all these things, and so many last men, as Nietzsche would say, are going to fall slave, like they're gonna become a slave to that. They're gonna love the fact that they can pay Elon Musk for something like that, no matter what kind of consequences or debt they're gonna acquire because of that. And then that's gonna leave a lot of beautiful women that are just gonna want to get scooped up by the big boys, that have their own farm and have their own fruits and vegetables and all that fun stuff. So, listen, me and my boy Ryan gonna start a harem. So, you want to join?
Yeah, boy. uh, did you have another point, or I kind of wanted to talk about casual sex?
That is a very prominent thing. Sure, go ahead.
So for me, I'm not sure where to start with this. I've just found it so, it's perpetuated by society, and I think it's a part of the whole capitalist culture and how, sex sells. It's like we want to acquire these things, which is quite primal in its own nature, which is why it's able to be so easily brought up from the majority of people. Falling prey to these sorts of things is also just a form of slavery in itself. You know, I think truly, if you're enslaved to anything, it just there's so many consequences that goes along with that and how it's going to affect your life. You can never control what goes on around you. People and everything are unpredictable. No matter how much you shout and scream or force someone to do something, everyone is unpredictable in nature. That's why you have to work on your own world, your own reality, your own self. You can't control what goes on around you, but you can control what goes on within. Sort of a side tangent there. But for casual sex, so many men don't see a problem in it at all. Sleeping around, high fives go around, and it's something almost seen as admirable. And the same for females today as well. And it's just, I think, our duty as a human is to be the best version of ourselves so we can be a benefit to our society. And I guess you have to ask yourself what you're going to get out of it. Are you going to fall to your primal self just so you can come and have someone to fill the void of loneliness for one night? Why would you settle down with one woman, or man, I suppose, when you can have many? You know, you can have many partners whenever you want, and you can fulfill that desire to have sex for one night and get that dopamine release without the commitment and the impending relationship and forming a solid bond with another human. You know, it's almost cold in nature for this sort of one night culture that's going around. The more you allow your primal instincts to take over, the harder it is to maintain faithfulness with one person. And in turn, that will make it more troublesome to control yourself. I believe you should do things to better yourself. If you think casual sex betters you and makes you a better person, then go for it. But if you are enslaved by the idea of having to have casual sex in order to fulfill some void within yourself, then that is a problem. This is a bit of hippy dippy, jib jab, but when you have sex with another person, it's an exchange of energies. And Zeus, there's a ancient tale of how we were four-armed, four-legged beings, and Zeus split us in half. And it's sort of a tale of finding your soulmate and becoming that one person again. A mixture of masculine energy and feminine energy combining to become one once again. Finding your soulmate and getting that yin-yang, that balance that all humans need. You know, if you're having casual sex and that person is carrying around the guilt, shame, or trauma, you can energetically absorb that. You know, it's going around and plugging your phone into random people's computers and downloading their files. If there's a corrupt file in their system, you download them as well. For me, I think sex is a sacred act, and it should be treated as such. While there's no scientific literature or studies done on such that will prove my point, I will say from personal experience, whether it was the drugs or not, I had sex when I was on acid, and I noticed an exchange of energies with the person that, almost like two auras intertwining in that one moment, and in that moment, everything is silent, and it is you and the other person as one. And, since that moment, even if it was the drugs or it wasn't, it made me much more discerning in who I chose to engage with and have sex with. I think energies and aura and a person who you spend your time with has great influence on your mind and your well-being. But also, I've been, trying to not allow anyone control the emotions I have: happiness, sadness, depression. I reserve that to myself, and I try my best to do so. I don't want anyone to be able to anger me, to make me feel worse about myself, to make me feel happy, to be able to control these emotions within myself. That's pretty much all I had to say about that. Ben, what do you think?
That was profound, my friend. I think I like the analogy of the virus that you said, because that's really true. It's not, you don't just, I think people underestimate the kind of connection they get with somebody. Whether you like it or not, or whether you're more cold than the other person, typically, I don't want to be sexist, but typically the guy is less, connected. But the girl, like, how inconsiderate of you to not think about the girl and the other person that you're interacting with. For you not to give second thought to this person as a human being and their feelings, it shows you as a degraded animal that's using this human being that has the same consciousness as you as an item for pleasure, as a fleshlight, which is very revolting. I hate that idea. One statement I just saw, which is pretty true, and I did see a video on it, like a philosophical video, so it's right in line with it, is the vibe you put out is the tribe you attract. And I was like, damn, son, that should be bumping. Boy, that's so true. Um, and so maybe that doesn't relate too much to the whole um, man woman or man man or woman woman whatever sexual connection. But another thing that I liked that I will bring up is the value of the act. It's like how much better is anything in life when you incorporate um, the mix of human consciousness with the inherent nature of being an animal. And intercourse, the intertwining of cosmic energy is no different. If all it is, nuck if you buck, and then that's it for both of you. Let's say both parties are in agreement, like this is what we're doing. We don't give a shit, no strings attached, quote unquote. Um, Inevitably, people do get hurt because it's impossible when spending time with someone to not grow somewhat of an attachment. You get to know them.
And sorry, just to add one thing, and it's because that people don't see sex as a sacred act. It's something that they can casually have, and that's why no one has ever been in a successful, no strings attached relationship, because they don't. I guess they don't put the value of what they're doing into the great proportion of life, or they don't have great meaning in it. And I wish I could find better words to describe this, but yeah, go on.
No, it's very true. Is the intimacy, like I find it so much better, not just from a physical perspective, but from like the entirety when I treat it as a spiritual act, as a sacred act, that I don't want to just, you know, get with anyone that I can or anyone that I think somewhat should can get it. I am waiting for a deeper connection that I can share more intimate parts of life with because it means so much more. The point of a relationship for me, and I believe for a lot of people, the sacred point is two complete individuals that are coming together and that are going to help each other grow, in every which way. It should be a partnership of spiritual, mental, physical growth. And when it's not, and it's just this kind of animalistic primal, it really is pig like I don't care what anyone says, but it's legitimately no different than a pig. You know what I mean? And like, what a waste of consciousness. What a waste of the divine spark that is instilled in all of us to just reduce ourselves to an animal as opposed to bringing up the animal and bringing up the spiritual. So,
Yeah, exactly. And I was listening to Jordan Peterson, and
oh,
as a clinical psychologist, he said that he has seen that not one person has gotten away with anything. And
huh?
I've that, like any action, like say you steal from someone, you never get away with that. That'll come up some way, somehow later in life. And
Uh,
yeah, so it's so true. Anything that brings you shame, guilt, taboo, uh, lustfulness, or things that you want to hide from others, that'll always catch up in one way or another to yourself. So I think it's very important to really dive into what it means to be human, what it means to love, what it means to have sex, what it means to live on this earth and live in harmony with the people here. And a lot of people are so focused on their own goals that they forego, um, looking at what it actually means to live. They've fallen prey to a idea that was given to them by others, not the idea that they created themselves. So I think if you want to become enlightened within yourself, gaining control over your emotions in a way that you create your own values rather than values that were given to you by others. You don't allow others to control what happens within you, but you also can intercede when you see an injustice happening because you have values yourself. It's like you don't have to allow someone to anger you before you act. It's like if you see a man trying to sexually assault a woman, Don't allow it to anger you, but know the value that that is wrong and that you can intercept and stop that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, that was quite the interesting progression of thoughts.
Yeah, and we're both not feeling well, so I think we did pretty well relaying our thoughts there with sluggish minds. But
Oh yeah.
I want to just leave us with a quote by that boy Mahatma Gandhi.
A.
Your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values becomes your destiny. Now, think about that. Think about what it means. What do you want your destiny to be? And if it is not aligned with your current path you are on, then you need to change one of the things that he said. Start with step one by changing your beliefs and creating your own values. That Ubermench, baby. Come on. Let's get over humans. We can become
Give,
the Overman.
give us a bark, our lovely viewers, for we cannot. Give us a solid DMX bark.
Is that
Dense thinkers out, motherfucker.
Dense thinkers out, baby?